Hey EJ, how's it going? Um, so I'm taking a look at this, and I like that you animated the camera movements where needed. I really appreciate that, so thank you. So I'll give you my thoughts on this whole thing, um, but it's coming along. So one of the things I was kind of hoping we could do is get an establishing shot before we get here. Um, so what we kind of want to do is show this clean, and I like that we can see what this character is doing now. You'll have to figure out what you want this character to be doing, because obviously they won't be aiming at the corner. But let's say they're just standing here, like prepping their gun, or they're standing at attention and like looking around or whatever. Um, they're guarding. They're guarding, whatever that is. Maybe we should show this wall clean and show this character here like entering in. Um, in kind of like a sneaky way. We got to show that they're creeping the wall. They know that there's the possibility of like guards around or whatever. I don't know what this pose would be. It's kind of for you to decide. But yeah, eventually they get to here. But it should be like they're slowly creeping the corner. We see that they see, and then it should be like kind of a quick retreat back once they see that guard, so that we can see like their thought process, right? This feels like a huge and fast retreat. So I'm just going to mark some frames. So it should be a somewhat fast retreat, but I don't know that they should go this far over screen left. Maybe you already know that. Maybe it's just that you didn't get a chance to get to it. But if they are here and they pull back, I would keep them pulled back somewhat more reasonably, somewhere around here, right? And again, I don't know what these poses are. That's kind of for you to discover, and they have a gun and all that cool stuff. So, yeah. So then we see them, this is kind of more what I imagine they would retreat to. And then, oops, sorry, let me get back to where I was. Okay. So now we need to get the audience's attention that they're about to grab something, right? So we're gonna have to like show that somehow with the arm and their face, so you have like a little bit of time here. Once they like come back to here, we need to have their gaze and their look go down to their belt. So we're showing more top of the head here as they look down as to what they're about to do, and you can support it. This is a terrible pose with the arm up, getting ready to like grab something. This is a bit exaggerated, but I'm just trying to communicate an idea about what we need to do so that the audience is like fully capable of understanding what's about to happen here, right? Like they're gonna go for a piece of equipment or something, in that kind of area. So then when we cut to the close-up, one of the things that happens when you cut to something like this, if it's not enough of a change from what you had before, it will read a little bit odd to your audience. So you have to make sure there's like an extreme change in cuts, and you have to motivate the cut. So when we're here, we're going to start the hand reaching down to the belt. So that this arm here reaches down to the belt. And it's a little bit off frame and stuff. So then when we cut to here, I think that this needs to be much closer in. And I think in order to make this not look like a jump cut, and a jump cut is when you like push in but not a lot, not enough. So what we really want to do is reframe on something like something much closer. So maybe like this is her waist. It's got to be just a little bit closer than what you have, I think. And then when she pulls out the grenade or whatever this is, that we get a good look at it. You know what I mean? So we kind of have to figure out a way that she can hold it that's not going to look like she's showing it to the audience like, hey, look at what I have here, but it needs to like read. So let's see, you pull it out of your belt and you come up with it. So maybe like the fingers are here, something like this. You know, we got a thumb like this, but whatever it is, it needs to be easily legible as a grenade. And if it's the science fiction idea of a grenade where you shake it, you know, maybe you can model something kind of like unusual in it where it looks like a grenade, but it's not quite exactly like a grenade we're familiar with. So it has to be recognizable, but it also has to be different enough where we know it is a grenade. I was just doing some research on grenades for work, and I never realized, but you're supposed to hold that spoon part of them. Yours doesn't necessarily need a spoon. Anyways, so I'll quit talking about that. But yeah, get in close, like really show what's going on there, really highlight the grenade. Like you might even want to figure out what you want your composition for the grenade to be. Start like maybe it's even possibly this zoomed in and this huge. So we're seeing fingers here holding the grenade when she pulls it out, whatever those look like. Bad drawing, yada yada. But the idea is like, the idea of that shot is this. This is the hero. This is the grenade. This is the thing we're trying to tell the audience about. I don't know if you even want to go as far as say like shake 'em up grenade on the grenade. That might be a little corny or a little too on the nose, but you know, if you do have any text there, you have to make sure it's on long enough for people to be able to read. But if this is what we're showing the audience that she pulls out from behind her skirt, you know, you might not even see much of her skirt here. But we have to understand what's happening, that whatever the grenade is, we kind of have to indicate where it's coming from, where it's coming out from, so she can prep to reach down in that previous frame here, and then here, maybe before you cut, she's in there kind of like rummaging around. I'm assuming there's like a pouch or something back there, right? And then we cut to the close-up to like show the grenade coming out so the audience can see it. So that's kind of, I think, how you need to stage that if you want it to be like really clear to the audience. You kind of have a left to right camera move here, and I wouldn't do that unless she was already starting to creep the edge to throw it, because it's a little odd to go left to right and then cut to like a static thing. It doesn't feel like that left to right camera movement was motivated by anything. We want to make sure all these camera cuts and camera moves are motivated. So this camera cut is motivated in order to show us the detail of the grenade and get a punch in on that. The more of a change, the more motivated it's going to feel. So I want to make sure, like this is completely unmotivated, this left to right thing, so I would lose it here. Maybe you can incorporate it elsewhere, but I'm not sure that this is the spot. So this pose of her shaking it and everything looks really nice. I like that. Anyways, moving along. She throws it here, which is great. But what I would love to see, and I don't know if you need to reposition the camera for this, but I'd love to see the guard or the other person. I probably drew that head a bit big, but let's say the other guard is here and she throws it. I want to see what this other guard's reaction is to that, right? Because we're trying to tell a story of these two characters, and we need to sort of establish we've kind of established what the relationships are between them, but now we got to set up the relationships between what happens with their actions, you know. So when this grenade comes in here, we need to tell the audience like, well, what does this character think or feel about it, right? Like what's going on. So we need to show this character be like, huh, what? Notice it and have some sort of reaction. It doesn't have to like fully resolve or anything. You know, who knows? Maybe this character is like looking off in the distance that way. That's a terrible arrow in perspective, but Maybe they're looking in Z depth and then they have to like turn around as it bounces like by their feet and they look down at it and then they're startled, but by the time we cut, that's when this explosion is happening. I do like this camera shake. So one thing about camera shake is I think this camera shake could use a little bit of refinement. So it should start big. This lasts a really long time. I'm not sure if it's a little too long for the size of the explosion, because like the person behind the wall needs to have survived it, right? So what I would do here is you have like 1, 2, 3 to come to another keyframe. Maybe shorten that up. Let's make it higher frequency. So every direction change should happen maybe over 2 or 3 frames. And you got to make sure that you're not just going from like A to B and then back to A, with your shake. Like it should be different in axes. Because this feels like where we started, right? And I don't know if that's true. Let me do a little bit of sleuthing. Yeah, it's really close to where we started. So I would just make sure, it's like you almost want like random stuff happening on the camera. You know what I mean? And as the camera shake goes on, your extremes should get closer and closer and closer. So like the vibration would start off bigger and then it would get like smaller and then stop, right? So like bam, it's kind of like how you want it to feel. So the distance the camera travels for the shake should lessen like rather quickly over time. I feel like this camera shake is lasting too long, and then especially in areas like this, it feels like we're going A to the same B, back to the same A. Oh, here it was. Like, here's her elbow. Here's her elbow. Here's her elbow. Here's her elbow. So this camera shake just has this straight kind of back and forth thing to it, and you really want to eliminate that. You got to like make it go crazy. I'm just drawing a star, but that would also not be a terrible idea for camera shake. 6-pointed star, 7-pointed star, or whatever, but it can be just like kind of a random thing, but you never really want to go like back and forth between 2 points. So that being said, all right, so I think everything's kind of working well here. It would be nice that once the explosion is over, we start to see her pick up her head and start creeping the corner again. Now currently, with the way the perspective is here, I feel like her leg and shoe and everything is dangling out over the corner, which means she could get shot, or it doesn't look like she's in a place of safety, and it doesn't really give her enough space to like jump out into. So I would take her whole person, her whole body, and slide it backwards a little bit at the beginning of the shot. Like she should retreat from this grenade throw here in an attitude like here, her head's down and stuff, but maybe she wants to, I think maybe I talked about this once already, that she's facing like away from it, like she's kind of like shielding her face. And then you can get some nice body language, some nice line of action, where she's kind of like, her head's down, maybe even more than how I drew it. Don't follow my drawings, but explore your poses, shoot reference, do all that stuff to figure out like what good physical acting for this moment would be. This is a nice start, but I think that can be pushed much more than what you have. So I would advise you to push that pose a little bit more. But hey, we're talking about poses and stuff and not the camera, so that's great. And then we're cutting here and it's totally unmotivated. So I think what we need to show is like, she's in some sort of crouched, ducked, anticipatory. What happened? How come I can't draw anymore? What is the what? Okay, sorry, Sync Sketch just kind of freaked out. Anyways, she's kind of in this duck down pose, whatever this is, whatever you decide to do. Reference or whatever. I'm not sure how much she wants to like cower or cover, but she needs to start coming out of it in order to motivate the cut over to here. So here I'm looking at the back of her head, and I don't really care about the back of her head. So she should be more like closer to like something that's interesting to look at and that motivates the cut. Like she's coming around here to this. She like does some sort of gun mechanics thing here, right? Now you don't cock this type of gun from here. That's more like a shotgun thing. This kind of gun is going to have a slide or a lever or something on the side that you grab and pull back, and it'll like automatically go that way. So I would do a little bit of research on guns to figure out like how this looks like a very real world gun and not a sci-fi gun. So I would look at to see what the mechanics of a gun like this are. Maybe this is like an MP5 or something, but it's a good idea to try to get those gun mechanics correct. This gun also looks massive in her hand. I would really, get this hand pose to be looking correct and cleaner. I think the thumb would be like on top here of her fingers, and then a lot of times shooters have their finger straight until they're actually ready to pull the trigger, and then they'll curl it in here. So you might want to think about scaling the gun smaller. I'm not sure, but figure out how the gun works and at least like make that like a little bit more accurate. But anyways, she comes up here and does this gun business. So she turns, she like cocks the gun or something. And then I thought you were saying that this was going to be a camera move. Maybe you changed your mind from here to here. I thought it was going to zoom out. So that doesn't seem like it's happening anymore. Instead, it's like a cut. But what's motivating this cut? Like right now, she's in this pose and she's in this pose. So, if she's going to jump out behind a corner, we're not indicating where the corner is here. So all of a sudden, that's where, I think we need to indicate where the corner is and have her start to like jump out from her thing around the corner. And then we're cutting here. It's going to feel again like a bad cut because we're kind of cutting from the same angle to the same angle. So maybe here is a good place to use a zoom, where initially we're in tight on her and here's the wall and stuff. And then we zoom out when she jumps out to something like this, where we see her now posted around the corner. Again, if her back was against the wall, so maybe that's a zoom out like you were initially planning. If her back was against the wall in this previous thing, which I'm not sure if her back is touching this wall, but then when she jumps out, you kind of want her still to have some sort of that similar relationship with the wall. She doesn't have to be touching it or hugging it exactly, but I don't know, maybe that's not important. Never mind, I'll ignore that. But then there's this camera move, which I think, I don't know when she starts firing, there's no indication of that here, but this camera move, like we're staring here at this wall, and I don't want to do that. Why am I looking at this wall? Why am I looking at this wall? You know what I mean? So I thought you said in this one she was going to be shooting. Maybe it's going to be slow-mo or something, I don't know. But I think we've lost track of what's happening with this character completely. So we'd like to see a before of this character and not just see the character for the first time after they've been shot. I feel like that is a key story point in this piece, and we're missing it. It's happening off screen, which I always think is very frustrating for the audience. So maybe your character jumps out here and aims, but then we cut to something else rather than this zoom thing. Maybe we cut to something like seeing your character here, seeing the gun here in perspective, seeing this character here like coughing or choking or like shaking their head or trying to like recover from what happened. This is not the pose we want, but this kind of captures the idea like, oh my gosh, what just happened? Horrible explosions and flashbangs, and I'm confused and disheveled and all that. This drawing is also way too big. We want to keep some kind of consistency for what we showed before. So something like that, where we see the character, and then like maybe this character starts shooting, and that motivates the cut to go to this angle of this character now getting shot. So you got to think through, if you're kind of getting into this multiple camera stuff, you got to think through like, where do I want to put the camera to best illustrate this action? What are the story points? How do I best frame on that story point? What motivates my cuts from camera to camera? So this character gets shot. Now, right now, this camera move, it like moves away from her, frames this character, and kind of settles here for just a beat, and then it like pulls back again, and then it zooms forward. So that's way too much, in my opinion, for a camera to be doing. Like I said in that Overwatch video, there's probably only 1 or 2 camera movements at a time. So, you know, you can't rotate the camera and then zoom the camera and then zoom it back and all this stuff. It's like, it's too much of a roller coaster. It's going to make people sick. And it doesn't, like, I don't know that it is really serving your story here. And then it zooms back on her. I think you just kind of hit whatever camera thing you're going to hit here with like the bullets coming out and shooting this character, and this character, you know, eventually like falling back and like, oh, you got me. You know, that's all great, but then I'm not sure you need to zoom in here. Or if you're going to do it, it's got to be a crash zoom. And a crash zoom should happen over a few frames. This is happening over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 frames. If you want to do a crash zoom, it should probably be 3 frames. Maybe 4 at most. And it just has to be much simpler. It just has to be like that, right? It's going to be at that kind of pace where it goes from this to like, and then she has some kind of reaction to like, oh yeah, or whatever you want her reaction to be. So that's kind of it. We're narrowing in on the camera stuff. I'm getting a little concerned about the lack of poses and the lack of like solid blocking because we're spending so much time on this camera stuff. So again, try to not only lock down these cameras, get your cuts motivated and all this stuff, but then let's start really getting in on the animation where it'll be like very critical of the poses that you're having here. We talked a little bit about poses, so that's great. But yeah, maybe you have to like put in extra time to get all this like locked down and start to like get more well-defined poses in there. All right, but good stuff. Keep going. Thanks.